All right, guys, we were wondering who was going to take the mantle as worst owner in the NFL after Dan Snyder sold the Washington Commanders earlier this year. And if this guy hadn't already solidified this spot earlier this year, he flat out just slam dunked it home this past weekend. If you don't know who I'm talking about David Tepper. David Tepper is the owner of the Carolina Panthers. He bought the team in I'd like to say 2018 or 19, maybe even 17, kind of that range there. Um, and if you don't know who he is, other than him being the Carolina Panthers owner, he is this guy who's like a hedge fund guy. I think he worked for Goldman Sachs at some point, left Goldman Sachs, started his own thing. Basically, his net worth is like 20 or $22 billion. He's the second richest owner in the NFL. And he has kind of been just a flat out disaster as the Carolina Panthers owner since he's got the team. We're going to kind of go over a few kind of stats that kind of solidifies that and kind of emphasizes how bad he really has been as the owner of the Panthers here. But first, let's go over this clip here. So basically, this past Sunday, the Carolina Panthers were playing the Jaguars, and that was the final nail in the coffin of the Panthers, having that pick that they traded to the Bears last offseason be officially the number one pick in the draft. So hopefully this thing loads here. So you can kind of see I'm going to talk over this video here. So this is at the Jaguars game last Sunday. This is a video of the owner's suite where David Tepper was watching the game, and he appears to throw a drink at a Jaguars fan. And we'll watch this here. I'm going to kind of talk over it because there's no volume for this. Now you can kind of see here, kind of pay attention to the right part of the video here. You can kind of see a drink was thrown there. That's David Tepper in the ball hat there and the glasses. And, again, you kind of can't really tell from this video if that window's open, if he actually hit a fan. There's no sound, so we don't know if anything was like said between Tepper and the fan. We don't know if the fan said anything. We really, there's kind of a lot of unanswered questions with that. Regardless of that, though, that's just a very bad look for the NFL. It's a bad look for the Panthers, and it's an incredibly bad look for Tepper. Since this video came out, David Tepper got fined by the NFL for like $300,000. Now, I'm not mad at the fine. Like the NFL had to do something, but a lot of people were mad at the fine because they were like, "Hey, David Tepper is worth like $20 billion. If you look at that compared to his actual net worth, it's like not even a percent of what you ended up finding him there." So a lot of people were kind of mad at that aspect of it. But here's a few other things here. And David Tepper, here I'm gonna have this quote. So this is something that came out of there's like a transcript that came out because typically when situations like this happen, the NFL wants to address it, they want to talk it over, and they kind of want to make sure something like this doesn't happen again, because this isn't, like I said, this isn't a good look for the NFL. It's not a good look for the Panthers, and it's not a good look for David Tepper. And this is this is a line here in the transcript. This is a conference call between Tepper, Jimmy Haslam, Jerry Jones, and Jim Irsay. This is just a little snippet of what Tepper said here. "It was a very expensive drink, okay? Veuve, Veuve, I have no idea what that is, with sturgeon roe stirred in. Remember those Orbitz drinks? This cocktail is my version. I invented it, so yes, I deeply regret spilling it. That being said, the video was unacceptable, and I apologize if he feels in any way disrespected." God, what a douche. What a douche. Instead of just like it's okay if it was an expensive drink. It's okay and to be upset about that. But you don't say that out loud and in public, especially when your net worth is $20 billion. That just makes you look petty. It makes you seem like it's kind of like saying all of these things and then about somebody and then being like, but however, here are your flaws. It's like, no, okay, you felt like you had to preface it. Here's the thing here too. He said that before. He's like, yeah, I deeply regret it. It's like makes me feel like, nah, you probably don't. You're just kind of like a petty Wall Street douchebag. Here's a few other stats here with the kind of like nail in the coffin of David Tepper being the worst owner. So he has fired 3 coaches in season in less than 6 years. That's not good. That kind of shows impatientness. Carolina has posted a 31.6 winning percentage, going 31-67 since Tepper bought the team. That is the NFL's second worst over that span, 1 game behind the New York Jets. The Jets might pass them next year if Aaron Rodgers is healthy. The Panthers have not made the playoffs since Tepper bought the team. And to make matters even worse, Steve Wilkes, if you remember, they fire Matt Rule in the beginning of the season last year. And Steve Wilkes finishes the season, goes 6-6. He's a Charlotte, North Carolina native. He's kind of like a fan favorite in a lot of ways. And they almost made the postseason last year because that NFC South, until one of these teams gets a franchise quarterback and gets their, you know, their stuff together, gets kind of like all of their ducks in a row, this division just kind of seems wide open. The Panthers almost snuck into the playoffs last year, and a year later, they have the worst record in the NFL, and they don't even get to execute on that top pick. And again, like we said earlier, that trade where they gave up last year's first, um, this year's first, and DJ Moore. Right now, depending on what the Bears do with that pick, it's probably going to go down as the worst trade in NFL history. And a few other things that they've done since he's got the team. They trade Christian McCaffrey, who was a MVP candidate this year. The Rams offered them this huge package for Brian Burns. They said no to that. And yeah, I think just kind of all of those accomplishments, all of those negative things. There's another story earlier this year where David Tepper left the locker room after Frank Wright's last game. We didn't know it was last game at the time, where he was yelling the F word, leaving that out of frustration. He also does this weird thing where he has like a weekly meeting with the coaching staff, which is really kind of like cringy. And yeah, man, just kind of all of that stuff, the on-field stuff, the off-field stuff, situations like this. He's the worst owner in the NFL. Now, with that being said, I know Carolina Panthers fans are probably feeling very, very hopeless at this time. There's still a way to like there's still ways you can look at this glass half full. You could look at teams like that have been downtrodden, have had very, very dark periods in their franchise that are doing well right now. Teams like the Detroit Lions, who had an 0-16 season at one point. The Browns, who had like I feel like it was like over 30 game losing streak over multiple seasons. They're going to be in the playoffs this year. They've got their things turned around. And still do have Bryce Young, but the downsides of Bryce Young right now is he looks small, he looks unathletic, or at least, not athletic enough to survive, and he looks completely overwhelmed. And the reason I brought up that David Tepper coaches meeting, coaches talk, coaches know that he has fired 3 coaches in season the last few years, and people are going to look at that job and they're going to want to choose other positions over it. Because a lot of times coaches just want to coach and they don't want their owner kind of breathing down their neck and micromanaging them. And there's going to be a lot of good coaches that are going to say no to this job or not even consider it because of David Tepper being the owner. Now, another thing that David Tepper should do here, and hopefully this whole season, the trade, him having incidents like this publicly, hopefully he looks in the mirror and says to himself, hey, I need to be better. I need to look at how I have managed this team over the last, 6 years or something. And I need to look at like what I can do differently. Maybe it is being more hands off, being a macro manager rather than a micro manager, hiring coaches and giving them a little bit of a leash, giving them time to develop players, giving them time to, develop the roster, hiring somebody that can build a team through the draft and free agency, spending money on a new training facility, you know, doing things to like ingratiate yourself with the fan base, kind of doing a lot of good PR, signing good quality players out of free agency, spending cap space every single year. And hopefully for Panthers fans' sake, he does stuff like that. Because right now, he looks like he's the worst owner in the NFL, and it doesn't even look close. So there you have it. Let me know what you think. Is there another owner that should be considered in this kind of race here? Is it just David Tepper and himself? So let me know in the comments section. Thank you for watching this episode of the Sports Detective Show. My name is James Williams. If you like this content you saw here today, hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button too. I've been doing this podcast for over 3 years now. We're entering our 4th year doing this, and I mostly have been doing stuff audio wise. I've been talking college football, NFL, college basketball, NBA, you name it. I've been talking about it, and we're just now starting to put our clips on YouTube. So if you like this stuff, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps support the show. And thank you very much. I will talk to you next time.